Hello, this is Julia Bushkova, and today I'm starting my Suzuki sessions. Before I go into anything, I would like to make a disclaimer. I do not teach the Suzuki method. I also do not teach very young kids. So everything I will be doing today is geared towards older beginners or even adult beginners, and primarily those who study without the teacher, because if you study with the teacher, you will have a lot of help from your teacher. So we will start from Suzuki Book number 1. I do like to start from the beginning. And the first thing I want to point out is that in the beginning of the book, at least book 1 that I have, an older edition, Mr. Suzuki mentions tonalization and how important tonalization is. He calls it tonalization, or at least it's translated into English like that. In my way of saying, this is playing slower with a good tone, with a good sound. So he provides the tonalization a bit later in the book. I believe that you should do it first. So in other words, not necessarily starting with the exercise number 1, which is the well-known fast one, but starting with a bit slower version, either of the same or just longer notes here. Again, as it will be in the exercise number 1, which is, of course, this one. The rhythm recognized the world over, but instead of this, we're using still also middle of the bow, but slower bow, and perhaps an E string if it's comfortable for you, or an A string, or even an D string. What you need to know the best about the strings is that your elbow has to be on the level of your string. On E string, it's very close to free fall. On A string, make sure that your elbow is on the level of the hair of the bow and the string, where and also the wrist in the middle also will be roughly in the same plane, and so that creates the plane, one plane, good plane. Then if you go to the D string, you will raise everything to the D string level, and A again and E. So the A string sometimes and D are easier for some people, because here you don't need to use any pressure at all in the middle of the bow and just play with the weight of the bow, for instance like this. And they can either stop the bow or not stop the bow. And so on. And so, in fact, not stopping the bow is the way I was learning in non-Suzuki method. But anyway, it was a useful thing to do at first. Next exercise in here is based on the first one, whether you stop the bow or not, but you then have a break and you go to another string. So again, the levels of your elbow will be very important. The exercise here gives you just E and A string, but you can continue and do it also onto the D string, maybe even to G string if you're adventurous, and it will be looking like that. And on G you will be even higher. So whatever you do, make sure, of course, that the bow stays parallel to the bridge. It's easier to be said than done, especially at first. And so that would be requiring your work with the mirror. And so here it's a good thing because you don't have any notes to play yet. You go to the mirror and you see how you're doing it, and you hear and you watch. Next, in the book, their introduction of the fingers. Now, to put the fingers of left hand together with the right hand is very, very hard. So the first thing I suggest to do is to separate the hands and learn the notes that you'll be playing at first with pizzicato, or plucking. For pizzicato, we use our thumb, which would be placed in a corner of the fingerboard, and then you put the finger, the index finger, a bit behind the string that you're going to pluck and pluck sort of up, like this. And then you can place your left hand fingers and you would get the notes that way. So here the first one actually shows you how to do it on E string, and it tells you to do it with a bow, but again I would do it with plucking, even though your tune will be kind of fast, but that's kind of fun. You do pizzicato, then you put first finger, and so on. So then you will go to the A string and do the same thing between A and the first finger there, which I already showed, the B. And then you can do on D string, again, make sure that your arm also goes slightly higher. And in this fashion, you can actually add the F sharp, and so on, and then do the G. So use the 3 fingers, and here we come to the pattern, because you will be in this pattern. You will not be using the 4th finger, but these 2 will be together. So on any string, you will have the full step, and whole step, as you already know. Then after that, when you master this, I will go and play the next line first. Again, I would be playing something with breaks, with rests. Place first finger, and so forth, and then you come back. And then next one, you are preparing all 3 fingers, and again, think pattern, and you place these 3 fingers all together on the string, and you start with the 3rd finger. And again, as I said before, you could do it with a very nice, beautiful sound without stopping, and probably slower. Here it goes with all 3 fingers placed. Or even not placed, just putting first, 3rd finger by itself, then 2nd finger prepare, then 1st finger prepare. By using the word prepare, I mean that yes, the next finger is placed a little bit before you actually take the finger off and play that next note when it can be done. And then you do it with the bowing variation that is given below. And here now finally we arrive to the Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, which is the number 1 tune actually, or piece. And the Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, in my opinion, again, you will start it with pizzicato. I will show right now with the bow in my hand, but you will do it without the bow in your hand because this one is harder. And you can start from A and do it. Or you can start from D, and we call it transpose, play it in a different key. And then you continue the song exactly like this in the new key, in D major key rather than in A major key. For pizzicato, it actually sounds much nicer, but also for many people, playing on D and on A is more comfortable than playing on A and on E. And in that regard, I would go with what sounds good and not exactly how the book, whichever book, gives you. Okay, so after you mastered this with pizzicato, you start playing with the bow. And again, in my suggestion to you is don't try to stop the bow unless it's easier for you, and then play it without stopping in slower tempo. Slower is better. And then you can stop here, get your bow on the next string. Make sure again that your bow is parallel to the bridge and you get good sound and it's in tune. After you mastered the theme, and that was the theme itself, then you go to variations. I suggest the following order. You can go the first variation A, then I suggest you will do variation D, but not in true 16 notes, but a bit slower. Then you do variation C, which will give you the bow distribution, the bow pattern, the first bow pattern we usually use. And then after that only you will go to variation B. Now variation C uses this bow pattern, which is a very important pattern for us. It plays faster. or completely without stops. Also, we play it without stops. All of these three variants are very important. So, as you noticed, it's still in the middle of the bow. It's lower tempo or faster tempo. The proportion is the same. The longer notes take more bow, and the short note takes half of that longer bow. So that is very important to master. After this, you will go to the next piece, which is lightly row, and that's called for a moderate tempo, moderato. I again will go without thinking cut time. At first, you want to do things slower, slowly but surely, or slower and better than immediately in tempo that it probably is on the CD. So here again, first I will do the pizzicato version and learn my left hand that way. And here you have the option of using fourth finger or E open. And we will get into fourth finger just a little bit. By itself, otherwise the song is really not difficult if you don't play it too fast. I think you would be able to manage it with the proper levels of the elbow as well. Next thing, Song of the Wind. Now, Song of the Wind presents a big challenge for the left hand and for the right hand in the measure number 3. Measure number 3 here goes like this. Sounds nice, but here you have a fifth that your third finger should play. And if you look at my left hand right now closely, you will see what I'm doing there. So I put the finger on A string, just a part of the finger, and then I roll that finger. And you see what my hand is doing. It's slightly changing its angle. So here your angle is straight, and here the angle is not. And that's how we play fifths in general. So if I would play second finger fifth, I would do the same thing. The first finger is usually more comfortable because we usually can place it on 2 strings together. So if I have, I may be able, so if I have, I might be able to just place my first finger exactly on 2 strings and then just change cross the strings with the bow and not do any adjusting movements in the left hand. However, so in the third bar, in the third measure, again, it will be very important to practice pizzicato until you reach that fluidity of this movement, and only then play it with the bow because it will multiply the difficulty. It's very important to practice that difficult bar with the fifth, using the shadow fingerings, as we call it, and you will then end up playing the open strings with the bow, and that is very good. So your notes were again. Okay, so instead of playing the fingers, I will do, and I get that tune on open string, and that is very, very important to practice without the left hand. So just this. And get very good sound and get your movement of the elbow really cleanly, and the changing of the strings also very cleanly. And then after that, you will use it with the fingerings, okay? Other than that bar, I think it's pretty good. It's pretty easy to do. And you already have your bow distribution for when you need it. So next, a little piece is Go Tell Aunt Rhody. And if you prefer, you could skip that one and go to O Come Little Children. But if you prefer to play it, it might be good for you because it introduces a bit of another pattern with the bow. And that is that you start and then you repeat. And you have 2 short notes now on starting an up bow. And at first, so not long, short, short, long, short, short, but short, short, long. And in that case, you can actually practice it separately at first, several times, and then you go to the piece and you put it with the left hand, which, by the way, you have previously learned in pizzicato, of course. Throughout the whole first book, I would learn each piece absolutely with pizzicato, by memory, with good intonation, in tune, okay, and not move to the right hand, to add the right hand right away. You will be much better off. Next one is O Come Little Children. O Come Little Children, number 5, can offer you 2 variants of playing it. You could be playing it with E open string, in which case you do a lot of string crossings, which for many people is very difficult to do. Or you could possibly try to learn to put your 4th finger on the string. If you choose to try the 4th finger, it might not work, it might be a bit too early. So, but if you try to do it, it may be a good idea actually do it on this one, because here you have a 2nd finger as a C sharp, that's in your piece there. You again will find it, please like this, in pizzicato. And now, very important thing here, if you look where the thumb is, put your thumb closer to that 2nd finger and away from the 1st finger, okay? And so have the center of your hand be basically on the 2nd finger. If your center is here and not on the 1st, which is there, this way, okay? First one, you don't need it first in the beginning of this little tune. So then, when you put your 4th finger and you play yourself, okay, and then you match that, you will realize that the distance between that 2nd finger and 4th is not too great, because your thumb will be actually closer to that 4th finger by being closer to the 2nd. Very important bit, okay? If your 4th finger lands in this position here, so what you might want to do is take your own index on the other hand and just press here. So press that it will go bent, completely supported, I call it. So in the distance here would be a bit shorter. Okay, so this one you're further away and this one you're closer here. So this is the shape you want to get to. And trust me, it's not about just your length of the 4th finger, it's really the comfort in knowing that feeling. And so after this, if you manage to place it in the correct shape, that's very good for you, because then you can play okay, and that's much easier for the right hand. And you meanwhile are learning your 4th finger from a good start. It's not a good idea to start playing 1st and then 4th, because usually it promotes this kind of 4th finger in most people, because we tend to clamp right there. So with 2nd finger, you should put your thumb against the 2nd finger and center the hand there, okay? So in this case, O Come Little Children is an easier piece to play. And then we come to tonalization, which is in the way, in the translation, as I said, of probably the Japanese term. Tonalization means playing with good sound. And it's given right there, but I believe that you should start every session exactly with good sound exercises. And they can be not necessarily crossing strings, but just exercises on one string. Or just equal bows, as it says here on the page. And back to A. And just getting used to this movement, also between D and A the same way. And then it gives you here several notes. Again, the same things as you have done already, but I would do actually these ones always first in the beginning of your practice. Next, after tonalization exercise in this book is number 6, which is May Song, which I propose to skip for the time being because it offers a really difficult bow pattern, and this is that. So to play that and not to have which for most people that will happen, it is kind of hard. So I suggest either skipping that tune that piece, or playing with different bowings. So different bowings would be playing like this. And then if you prefer to do this version, which is, we called it legato or slurs, then that is actually very doable, and you can do it early on. If you're playing with the bowings are written, I think it's a bit awkward. Next is number 7, Long Ago. And that piece is nice because it exercises also our main bowing pattern. Again, you're still staying in the middle portion of the bow and using the bowing pattern that I was explaining earlier. Another good thing here, of course, is like everything you have learned already, your left hand using pizzicato, and then it becomes easy. And you can use E string because there are not many string crossings here. The Allegro number 8. Again, I would probably practice it first without stopping the bow. And so on. And then when you master that and you want to go faster, then you can start using what we call the martelet, which is the stop the bow, which we were using in the beginning of the videos. Number 9 is the perpetual motion. Now, perpetual motion means that things don't stop. Here again, learn the notes pizzicato, and then you go to the bow. In this case, of course, it's much easier if you already know how to put your 4th finger down for just one note. To the 2 notes, you can go to the E string. But to cross the string for just, it's just so much movement here. And in the professional or even half professional world, we will never do it. We'll just never do it. So we will be on one string. So it is better to use the 4th finger here. If you do not or cannot yet use your 4th finger, I probably would recommend not to play this piece at this point. Get your 4th finger on the string, and then you can always return to the perpetual motion. To speed up, you have a good variation here. It is to how to speed up in case you do play, when you play it. It's actually a good idea to do it for the faster bow hand, but on the other hand, bow movement. But on the other hand, you have already done it in the very beginning and in Twinkle Twinkle, so I suppose it will be in your right hand. So it's more about your left hand and string crossings. And then we have finally in the book exercises for the 4th finger. Again, for some people it would work. For some people, as I said earlier, it might not, because going from 1 to 4, it may create this shape, and you want this shape. So instead of doing 1 to 4, you might want to do 2 to 4, as I said before, explained. But I would not repeat it now, since you have this explanation earlier. And then you can proceed to your 1, of course, and you can proceed to all your little tetrachords, which is little scales. And again, tonalization, wonderful. You do the first tonalization and you do second tonalization in turn on different days. That would be a smart thing to do. Then you have a bit of D major scale, 1 octave, very nice, slow, pizzicato, then with the right hand. That would be a good thing. Now, another perpetual motion, very similar to the one before, what actually is the one before, now starting with the D string, the same idea. If you're using your 4th, great. If you don't use it, you might want to wait until a bit later when you find how to play it. Another good way to train your 4th finger, by the way, is actually trying to put your fingers in this pattern that one. So if you are in this pattern, you will have, and then D sharp, and then your fourth is more likely to be more comfortable. Even here, still, since you started from the first finger, make sure that your thumb, you move your thumb a bit closer to the second, and then feel that the first finger is coming back. That sensation, rather than starting from here and going up. So after the second tonalization, what I see in the book is perpetual motion starting on a D string. And then we go into allegretto, which is number 10 and very doable, especially if you get your fourth finger participating already. After number 11, there is another tonalization that this time it gets you to the G major scale. Very good idea. And again, luckily you already played on G string level and you know where your bow arm has to be. Still play first time pizzicatos, learn the G major scale pizzicato, then use the bow. Next thing is number 12. It's called etude, an etude. Now this particular etude seems to me it's a bit too early for you to play if you really started from the very, very beginning. I would not teach this etude right now. I would teach this etude much later. So I would suggest that at this point you don't do it. You skip it, and you will return to it perhaps later, somewhere when you're in book number 2, or even maybe in the book at the end of the book number 2. There are very, very many string crossings in the beginning, and it may promote wrong habits. However, Minuet 1, which is number 13, introduces a different bowing, and this bowing is this. So it's a longer bow, faster bow rather, not longer, faster bow, and then two bows to fill it with stops. So it's the same kind of stopping that you did before between the bows, now is on one bow. And by itself you hear the beat, which is very good because we are in minuet and it's in 3. And here you have it. And so on. Again, I repeat the same thing. Please learn at pizzicato left hand without any bowings, obviously, and then practice the bowing separately. Also practice on open strings. It's very useful at all the time. So here the first bars will sound like this. And then pick up to the next one. From the next bar, also important. Here's pick up to the bar number 5. So that is what your right hand will be doing. So you learn the left hand pizzicato, you learn right hand like this, and then you put them together. And that would be your best bet with number 13, the minuet. Minuet number 2, number 14, again, there are many more string crossings in there. I think it is doable, again, if you learn it on open strings for the right hand and pizzicato in the left hand. And in both minuets, number 14 and number 15, again, you will have situations of when you have to roll your second finger and the third finger on the fifths. Do not pick up fingers and put them back if they're playing a fifth. The Happy Farmer, number 16, is actually offers you good bowings. I would do them. Again, the same situation, by the way. You have to roll it, not pick it up and put it back. Next is number 17, Gavat. Now, Gavat in the first part is very doable. In the second part, not so much. For some people, it may not be so doable, since it suddenly uses 16 notes and this sort of thing. And A, you have not played that fast with your left hand so far, and B, you have not done any accidentals with the same finger. So that might be a bit too much, a bit of a stretch for some people. If you cannot learn it in just a separate fashion, you need to go to that bar. It's bar number 4 in the second half, in più cantabile, and playing, of course, slower and finding these notes very cleanly. If it doesn't work, then I would leave this, not try to play the piece at this point, but rather go and train this kind of motor technique using, for instance, Rhody, exercises in dexterity in the first position, the book number 1, or Shevchik, or Sevcik, as people pronounce it in America, but Shevchik. Also exercises for placing of the fingers of the left hand. And that is very important in order to correctly play what the gavotte has here in the number 17. And then we're pretty much done, actually. We just have a couple exercises of how to play more dense. And you have them here with the good exercises. Just playing exactly what's written there with the correct rhythm will get you exactly into the more dense situation. So I hope that has been helpful. And now you have a good overview of book number 1. Enjoy practicing. Don't forget to subscribe. And I will see you all later.